Hey guys, Zach from Reaper here. I'm doing a little reel maintenance today, so I figured I'd show you guys how we do it. A lot of people get intimidated by these big things, but really a piece of cake. It's easier than a spinning reel. So a few things I use. Just got some Penn reel grease, some oil for the bearings, and now this is up to you, but this is cow's drag grease. Now there's two camps out there, or nice dry drag washers, or guys grease them up. But I'll show you what to do for both. Then we just got a pick, some little screwdrivers if you need them, a little bigger guy, and the Penn reel tool. And actually you need a T15 for the newer International V's. So for sake of time, I already cracked some loose, but I haven't taken it apart yet. So let's see what we got. So the big thing is, if you've never done this before, just go slow and try to organize any way you want, just so you don't get lost. So I like to keep all my side covers to one side, and then all the parts to the same side cover, individually, so you don't get them mixed up. Okay, so I got my handle side over here. There's 5 bolts, and should just take it apart. So I've kind of been doing these all day, so I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. But it comes with 4 washers on the ends of this spindle here, and it'll go right into this bearing. These are actually sitting there like that, but I'll show you guys when I reassemble. And it's easier just to get these lined up, and then I'll show you. But now you can see how much grease they put in here. I'm gonna wipe most of this clean, and I feel like with grease, a little goes a long way. I don't know why they pack them as much. Maybe they're counting on guys not taking them apart every season. But I'll show you what I do. I'm just gonna wipe a little bit, take it all out, and then you'll see. So I'll end up wiping this all nice and clean and putting a little bit of fresh grease in here, and smearing it around. But I'll show you that in a little bit. So next, you just pull the spool straight up, and basically this is the meat and the potatoes of it. Now if you just wanted to clean the grease, or check everything, clean the grease out, oil the bearings a little bit, you could throw this back together, a couple minutes. Now if you're having something you don't see sticking out here, or this doesn't feel right, you can take this all apart, which I'm going to show you. But other than that, if you want to do some real quick stuff and you don't have any problems with your drag or anything, then you could get away doing this probably like 10 minutes. But we'll dive all the way in. So for the sake of time, I'm gonna go ahead and clean all the grease out as much as possible. I'm sure you guys don't want to watch me do that, so we'll be right back when I get this all cleaned up. Alright guys, I went ahead and took the other side off. Forgot to mention, there's these little crush washers on this end, and there's a little crush washer that's on the end of this gear here, this spindle. Just try to keep track of those, don't lose them. So you can keep this on the frame, or you can take it off. It's a lot easier. So I'm going to take this crush washer off, and here's your bearing. This is where this pick comes in handy. So kind of get behind the bearing, you can shimmy it out. It's usually not too hard, but you see how that old grease in there, it's all it's pretty wet. That's why it's that light blue color. So I'm going to clean that all up. I'm going to wipe this bearing clean. Now Penn, these are like sealed bearings, and they recommend just the oil, I believe. Now, if you want to feel all your bearings and make sure there's no notchiness, make sure they spin pretty good. You'll know if you have a bad bearing. It'll just be crunchy. And if you wanted to, it's a pain in the butt, but if you really wanted to, they're sealed and there's these covers here. And if you had a really small screwdriver or pick, you can get between and pull this seal off. Now, they say not to pack them with grease, but if they were real bad or rusty somehow, you could put some grease in there, or you just buy a new bearing. But I've been working on these older reels we've had for, I don't know, 20 plus years, the old International 2s, and all the bearings feel great, and they're originals, so should be fine. So I'll clean that up, get all the grease out. These are the dogs. Try to get as much grease out as I can. You're going to need a lot of paper towels. It's a little messy. You don't have to get every little bit, but best you can. Then if you have some Q-tips, that definitely helps. That's pretty good. I just have the Penn grease here, and this is just a little it's like a little plumbing brush for soldering, so that helps. But I just put a little bit in there on the side so it doesn't corrode. Get some little extra on the dogs here, tiny bit more. And then I'll just take my finger, just smear it all around. The sides here, and I'll kind of get it on the lip, kind of act like a gasket so nothing can get in. But in my opinion, that's all you need. We're gonna take these apart every year, so I don't see any problems that can occur. But that should be good. So set that aside. Now this is the drag side. So to take this spindle out, there's a little Phillips screw right here. We'll lay it down. Screwdriver here. And what you want to do, this screw is holding this spindle in. So if you just take a paper towel, they're never that tight, so shouldn't be. There we go. That's just a little screw there, a washer. We'll set that aside so we don't lose it. Kind of separate my parts here. Now you got that little crush washer on here too. You see that, so I'll set that aside. And you should just pull straight up. Now as I go, I'll just kind of give these a quick wipe. There's a little spring on there. I don't really get crazy. I'll just kind of wipe it off, and then I'll put a little more grease on during reassembly. But other than that, I try to keep most of these parts together. So this plate's actually the clicker. So generally the past couple I've done, I'll show you. When you take this off, it's going to be really wet and real wet grease behind here. So you don't have to take it apart. I like to, just to, I don't know, get a sense of accomplishment there. Okay guys, on this side of the spool, this plate, where we just took that spindle out, this is actually your clicker. So there's just 4 little screws, the T15. Generally get this off. There's a little spacer here. But you can see how wet that is. So I don't like that. I feel like a lot of grease. You can see that. See that in the camera? Yeah, it's a lot of moisture. I feel like all that grease, it's all packed in there, it's keeping it in there, so that's why I like just putting a little bit. That's just my opinion. I don't know how true that is, so don't hold me to it. But this is just a clicker, so we're not going to worry about keeping this super clean. I'll show you that on the drag side, though. The drag plates you want to keep pretty clean. I'll just wipe this off as we go. So now you got a bearing here, and then there's a spindle in there too. Oh, bearing came right out. And just wipe that. And then that's all there is in there. And then the other side's the drag. I'll show you that. Get that clean. Alright, so if you're feeling adventurous and you want to get to the drag, that's how you do it. So there's this little tab here. See that? It's hard to see on the camera here. I'm using my GoPro, sorry. What you want to do, you can actually pull back on it and then maybe kind of twist it on itself. It's tough. So kind of, see, did that? There's a pin there. When you're screwed in, it slides into these holes. I'll show you when I get this plate off. But if you can get that clip to sit right on this edge here, you shouldn't need any tools to get it off. And you just screw it off like a jar. So there's the one outside drag washer. So you can see how much grease gets in there. And depending on who you ask, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you know, it's this same thing with the grease on this side. Looks like it's holding a lot of moisture, so I can't imagine that's good. So we're gonna take this apart and clean that all up. This spring. Alright, so I got those 8 Torx out. This is your drag plate. You just pull up on that. Now to keep track, they're beveled for the screw, so you know this is your top and that's your bottom. That aside, it's your inside drag washer. And there should be a bearing underneath, yep. So there's your bearing that actually sits in there, like that, just like the other side. So, but you can see all the grease and moisture that stays in there. So I guess it's a good idea to take it apart, because it really wasn't that difficult. The old International 2s are a little different, and everything, you know, they're pretty much the same inside as far as taking them apart, but the drags are different, and I'll show you that when I take the other one apart. So I'm just going to go ahead and get all this grease cleaned up. Okay, so I'm going to start putting some stuff back together on this side. before I put this bearing in, I'm going to check it. Feels good. What you can do, you just take a little bit of oil, and this will go for the rest of the bearings. You just put a little drop. And I just go around with my finger and do the same thing for the other side. Like that. There's a little bit of grease in here, so just go in there in the spindle. It goes in there like that. Now the same thing. Now I'm going to use a little bit less grease on this side so it doesn't kind of fling out against the drag. That might be a little much. That's pretty good. Now for the drag washer, to make sure there's no grease, I kind of just clean paper towel, press it, so there wasn't really anything on there. Nice and clean. I try not to touch it with my greasy fingers. Like that. Now this is where, before you put that back in, this is where it's up to you. So if you Google it, some guys want a clean drag, no grease. But then, they have this drag grease. This is Cal's. They say you can't use too less of this. So basically what they're saying, if you decide to do this, they're saying there's less drag startup. So there's no tension. The drag starts right away. And apparently it keeps it from fading out like on a big fish. If you're, got a big fish on and he's taking drag and it's getting hot, this will cut down on the fade. Now, this is personal preference. It's whatever you want to do. I've used it on reels. I don't see any ill effects, but so that's your call. So that's back in there, and then with the drag plate, I'll take a paper towel with some rubbing alcohol and just get all that grease off, so it's nice and clean before I put that back in. So I'll do that now. Put this back in. So I'll give this one more wipe before putting that out there. Just some alcohol, get that nice and clean on the drag plate. I'll kind of wipe the outside ring here, all that grease. Yeah, there's different theories on the grease and the drag. Apparently the old school reels with the asbestos drag washers, they had to be completely clean and dry. But these Carbon Tex ones, yeah, it's your preference. I mean, these drags, never had a problem with a drag, knock on wood, with these dry because these aren't greased. So we'll just keep going with what works. So put your spring in here. So I got the bearing in the drag washer. The plate, you can put your spring back like that. Now that clip that we're holding right here, see, that holds it up. So when you would release it, so I get a good picture here. Sorry. So that snaps down like that. So this is moving in and out, and that's locking it in to one of these grooves right here, so it can't come loose. So let's put my Now be careful when you do that too, because there's a little retaining clip there. If you pull too hard, I've had one break. So you know they stock them, so but you have to order online, because I've gone to a hardware store, I can't find one that small. So no big deal though. Put that back on. Just, you know, don't crank it, just hand tight. Put that clip back, and then I kind of just go back and forth till it locks into a hole. So that's good. We're good to go on that side. Flip it over. Take your spindle, and I'll just a little bit. I mean, little grease, guys. That's what I recommend. It goes a long way. Go in. Got our bearing. Take a little oil. It's pretty good. Okay, back. It's okay to get a little grease on the outside. It's not going to hurt nothing with that bearing. This little washer. Now there's a lip. So the lip goes inside and it'll sit in this groove here. Throw our clicker plate back on. We'll just put a little bit of grease on our spindle here. Oops. You kind of got to mess with this to get the seat all the way on the other side. But you know, it just has to come through those spines over there. So it takes a little finesse. So we're in. Take our little washer and screw. Put that back on this to hold it in. You might have to compress this a little bit, but most of the time you can get it fairly easy. And you'll know when to stop. You just keep going until it starts spinning. You don't have to crank it. Okay, so that's your drag and spindle. That's ready to go. Don't forget your little crush washer. I'll go on this side. Oil this bearing for this plate with the dogs. That's good to go. Now remember, oh, there's actually two washers on that side. I'm sorry. Or there's three? Okay, there's actually three. Three of them. They're real thin. So just keep them together. that's going to go right on top. So we'll get to show you guys how to take most of this off. Fairly easy. A lot of stuff gets caked up under this plate here, like moisture and stuff, so go ahead and take that apart. So there's a little set screw here. The handle. This thread. So this should come, if you have a Penn reel, it should have came with one of them. If you don't have it, these are not usually that tight. You might be able to get it with a pair of channel locks or something. You know, just be careful. You don't want to scratch it all up, but this should be fairly loose. Up there. Handle. Now usually there's a piece that sticks to the back because of the grease. Keep track of that. So now to get this gear out here, there's a clip, a little retaining clip around the spindle here. So if you have a little flathead, you can kind of get in a groove on the one side, kind of work it out. There it goes. Try not to let it go flying, like I did. And this will come out, and you can clean that all up. You can see how much, a lot of moisture stays on there for some reason. So bearing on the inside too, you can get out. It's probably going to slide out when you start taking the other side apart because that gear's out of there. Then side plate, the drag plate in there, I guess not really a drag plate, but it's for the lever. So when you engage this lever, you know, to tighten the drag, it's going to push this out, and that's what squeezes the spool. That's how your drag works. So if this it's hard to get out as it is now, but if you flip it over and you start taking this plate apart and it slides out, it's no big deal. You can see it gets a little moisture under there. It's kind of the pain in the butt to put back together. You know, it's up to you if you want to go this far with it, but I don't mind. That little washer, little plastic washer went right here that stuck to the lever there. So now I can push this down. And this was just like that, pushing up, but see how messy this gets. See how much moisture is in there, that wet grease. So I can clean that out. And generally, once you wipe most of this off, there's so much excess you don't really need to apply a whole lot more. But you know, just a little dab your finger in there, touch it up. See that? I'll just go back together like that. Another plastic washer that goes on the inside. Go like that. Plenty of grease in there still. This is where it gets kind of pain in the butt, because you got to kind of keep your finger in there now to keep this from falling down. You have to sneak your lever. Now, if you wanted to, at this point, you could take this all off, but there's really nothing that can get in there unless your reels are really beat up. But this one's pretty good, so it's only these 3 screws. That plate and that piece of plastic comes off. But for this part, you gotta sneak your lever back on, and then you gotta, you know, convince that to sit back like that, just like that. It went pretty easy that time. The last one I did, it gave me trouble, but that one's pretty easy. There's still plenty of grease on this. And I see there's, you know, the keyway. You just have to get that to line up, and there's that spring. So you kind of mess with that. Hold it. Clean my bearing off. But once you're upside down, you should be pretty good. Oil. I mean, for the most part, for the grease, there's only the gears that need to mesh nice. But other than that, you're just preventing corrosion, really. Slide that back. I kind of put a paper towel so that gear don't fall. For the clip, there's a groove right there. You should be able to push it on with your hands. Not too tough. This goes on. So this it's grooved right there. It goes around the shaft. That. So this, I feel like it just needs to be snug, but you got to find where, you know, your little retainer lines up. So Good, everything will be good. Oh, I back it off a little bit so I line up. This also is recessed for that set screw, just so you know. So I got it there. Just snug that. So, as I was about to flip it over and continue, that lever plate kind of popped out on me and I had to take it apart again. So I'm going to leave the handle off for now. I'm going to go ahead and put my other side on. Remember, this washer's in there, so I'm going to put that aside for now. I'm just going to put this back together. So these only go on one way, so you can't screw it up. And I did, like that. There we go, that's correct. Now these have plenty of grease on them, but if they didn't, if they were dry, you can see like salt build up on them. I would just kind of dip it. Okay guys, I think I told you to put this on here first. That's actually going to sit on top of this bearing like the other side. Sorry about that. Then we'll take our groups of washers. I'll set them right on top of this bearing and the other set. I'll take my little screwdriver here, line this all up. Get it under that gear. Like so. I'm going to put my spool in here. Get that right there. And just line everything up. Sometimes you gotta line your holes up. The two little ones that go on the bottom. And to get this to sit, you kind of turn the drag a little bit so that it seats down. And there you go. And I'll get these screws back in. Once again, there's enough grease on these to where I don't need to put any on. Start this one to hold it. I'll just go ahead and put my handle back on, put these screws in. I already showed you how to do the handle, so I won't do that again. And then after I get this back together, I'll show you the whole complete reel. And I'll show you how you can, any of your guys' reels, the paint fell out of the International there. I'll show you a little trick to make that look whole again. Okay, so got the reel back together, whole again. Everything's working. Just double check. So now, if you want to fix the lettering, sometimes the paint falls out. So you can see that. There you go. So there's a little trick. What you can do is you get one of these paint markers from a hobby store. You know, even if you wanted to change the color from black, you know, get creative. But we're gonna go with black today. So what I do is take a paper towel and get some acetone. Kind of dip it. And before you go and do this, I would just go on the back of the reel and just rub a little acetone on there to make sure you're not taking any finish off or any ill effects. Then you can even take the marker, draw a line, and if you're kind of quick, you know, I think it could dry, it might take it off, but a little acetone, that'll come right off. So go over to the front here. Let's take a little bit of acetone and clean the area. Now with the marker, you want to be a little precise getting in the letters there. You don't have to be crazy, but if you have any little scratches or nicks or wear and that marker gets in there, it's going to fill in. You could get it out, but you're not going to be able to wipe it nice and easy. You have to get like a Q-tip and stuff, but it's not terrible. So let's do that. Just do a little bit at a time. You can see I did that. Take my acetone. When it starts drying, it's got a little bit of muscle. You can see I filled that pen area in pretty good. So I'll just do the rest. I'll show you how that comes out. So if you see that, there it goes. Got all those letters filled back in. It looks good. Okay, so I'm just gonna clean this all up. I'll get this back together. I hope that was helpful. Thank you guys for watching. I'm not a professional. If you guys had any opinions or different techniques of doing it, just let us know in the comments. We'll get back to you. But thanks for watching, guys. See you later.